record day for local stocks. The CE calls anti-parallel trading protests an important factor in falling tourism figures. And in the US, a white policeman charged with murder for shooting a black man in the back.
Good evening. It's been a record-breaking day for Hong Kong stocks. For the first time, mainland investors used up their daily quota to buy shares here under the Shanghai-Hong Kong Stock Connect scheme. The influx of funds from across the border drove local stocks to highs not seen since the 2008 financial crisis.
A banner day for local stocks after the Easter break. The Hang Seng Index gained 961 points, or 3.8%, to close at 26,236, the highest finish in almost 7 years. Turnover hit a record $252 billion. What's more, a milestone today for the Shanghai-Hong Kong Stock Connect scheme, which links the stock exchanges of the two cities. For the first time since the scheme began last November, mainland investors use the 10.5 billion yuan daily quota that allows them to buy Hong Kong shares. The quota ran out shortly after 2 p.m, triggering a halt in buy orders for the rest of the trading day. Analysts say the surge in interest was sparked by Beijing's move last week to allow mutual funds to invest in the local bourse via the cross-border stock program. They also point out that investors are betting the valuation gap between stocks in Hong Kong and across the border will narrow. Turnover for northbound trading involving Hong Kong investors in Shanghai reached a new high too today.
Stock Connect is barely 5 months old. It has a long way to go, but we are very encouraged by these news.
Public coffers must be encouraged too. Stamp duty as a result of today's transactions is tipped to reach $500 million. Still, amid the euphoria, words of caution for investors by the chairman of the stock exchange.
I want to emphasize, I give a warning, investors, please be cautious. Capital market goes up and down, particularly in a positive market sentiment. Please be careful with your investment.
Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying said there was an alarming drop in tourist numbers over the long Easter weekend. The Tourism Board is expected to launch a citywide promotional campaign at the end of the month to attract more visitors. But will that resolve the negative sentiment towards mainland tourists in the city? Rani Samtani tells us more.
Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying says the reason for the falling tourism figures could be the strong Hong Kong dollar or economic conditions in foreign countries. But he also noted the recent spate of anti-parallel trading demonstrations as an important factor. Leung said the protests have seriously damaged Hong Kong's reputation as a tourist destination. He said the government will strengthen promotion on the mainland and in overseas markets to send the message that only a handful of people participated in the protests. Leung added that the administration will formulate policies to restrict parallel trading. Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development Gregory So said the new promotional campaign will be launched at the end of the month.
Exact details of the plan will be announced shortly by the Tourism Board, but it will be promoting Hong Kong in terms of its hospitality as well as a shopping paradise for tourists.
With the long Labor Day weekend coming up, the Hong Kong Tourism Board and the Retail Management Association are teaming up with restaurants, shops and hotels to introduce incentives to consumers. Lawmaker Vincent Fang said the new initiatives and the promotional campaign should help to boost tourism in the short term.
Hopefully all the restaurants in town, all the retail outlets in town will give a special or whatever promotion item, and hopefully the local consumer will come out and shop and enjoy food and dine, wine and dine, and hopefully this will also attract the tourists from mainland China to come again.
The retail sector legislator noted that in the long run, the government should also develop more tourist attractions. However, Neo-Democrat lawmaker Gary Fan said the chief executive has exaggerated the gravity of the situation.
已經係超出咗香港嘅旅客。
Fan said Japan, Taiwan, and Korea have relaxed visa restrictions, and both the Japanese yen and the South Korean won have weakened, making them more attractive destinations to mainland visitors. He added that in developing the tourism industry in Hong Kong, we should focus on attracting quality visitors. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
Japan and the United States have agreed to speed up talks to complete a review of defense cooperation guidelines between the two countries. This emerged during a visit to Japan by the U.S. Defense Secretary. Ashton Carter met with top Japanese officials in Tokyo today. Washington wants to transform the alliance by expanding the scope for interaction between the two allies. That's in line with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's push to ease the constraints of his country's pacifist constitution on the military. Speaking at a press conference afterwards, Carter warned against the militarization of regional territorial disputes that involve China and some of its neighboring countries and regions. He also repeated Washington's opposition to any unilateral actions to undermine Japan's administrative control of the disputed islands known as the Diaoyus in China and the Senkakus in Japan.
A white police officer in the U.S. state of South Carolina has been charged with murder after a video showed him fatally shooting a black man in the back. It's the latest flashpoint in a series of incidents that have raised questions about U.S. policing and race relations. Alan Buckner reports.
The shooting occurred in North Charleston last Saturday after 50-year-old Walter Scott was pulled over by Officer Michael Slager for a broken brake light. After a brief scuffle, Scott is seen running away, and Slager draws his weapon and fires 8 times. Scott slumps face down in the grass. A police report of the incident said Slager told other officers Scott had taken his stun gun, but Scott did not appear to be armed while running away. The video appears to show the officer dropping an object on the ground next to Scott. Slager was charged with murder after a bystander who shot the video turned it over to authorities.
Without the video, and that was the only witness there was the gentleman that was making the video, it would be difficult to ascertain exactly what did occur. I can tell you that as the result of that video and the bad decision made by our officer, he will be charged with murder.
Scott's family members cast doubt over whether charges would have ever been laid in the case had there not been the video.
And from the beginning, when it happened the first day, all we wanted was the truth. And I think through the process, we've received the truth. And we can't get my brother back, and my family is in deep mourning for that. But through the process of justice has been served. And I don't think that all police officers are bad cops, but there are some bad ones out there.
Civil rights leaders are calling for calm, but are planning to stage a protest in North Charleston later today. In his first court appearance Tuesday, Slager was denied bail. If convicted of murder, he faces 30 years in jail. Alan Buckner, TVB News.
Much of Washington, D.C. was without electricity on Tuesday. The power outage happened in the middle of the day, but as James Aiken reports, the disruption still caused a lot of trouble. James Aiken reports.
There's never a good time for a power outage, and that is especially true for public events.
Forever stand.
This one happened as TV host Oprah Winfrey was speaking at a U.S. Postal Service ceremony.
We've lost power in the building. No doubt about it.
At the U.S. State Department, the power outage became the top story at the daily news briefing.
Great. And then second thing, envisage something quicker.
The outage forced spokeswoman Marie Harf to finish the briefing in darkness with light from cell phones. Many of the outages were brief, but some were long enough to force evacuations at some public buildings, including museums.
A lot of people there, and it was dark, and it was awkward.
Why awkward?
Because, like, you couldn't see anything, and you're just standing there, and the lights are off.
Crowded.
Awful.
The elevators don't seem to be working either.
More than a dozen subway stations in the country's second busiest transit system had to run on backup power. The streetlights were also knocked out, snarling traffic. At the White House, backup generators kicked in when the power went out, so the interruption lasted only a few seconds. A power company blamed a dip in voltage as a result of a transmission line problem in the neighboring state of Maryland. Officials said they did not suspect terrorism in the outages.
So I do understand that my colleagues over the Department of Homeland Security have indicated that they do not currently see a nexus to terrorism or anything like that.
By mid-afternoon, full power had been restored to most of the region. A U.S. Homeland Defense official who was visiting the Pentagon when the outage hit said the disruption was a good opportunity to assess how well backup systems work during such events. James Aiken, TVB News.
Some more news from America now, and U.S. Senator Rand Paul has launched his 2016 presidential campaign with a combative message for both Washington and his fellow Republicans. Paul, considered ultra-conservative, is a fierce critic of Washington, where he is in his first term as a senator. He is also seldom in line with his party's leadership on either domestic or foreign policy. He announced his candidacy in his home state of Kentucky yesterday before jetting to 4 early nominating states.
We've come to take our country back from the special interests that use Washington as their personal piggy bank. The special interests that are more concerned with their personal welfare than the general welfare. The Washington machine that gobbles up our freedoms and invades every nook and cranny of our lives must be stopped.
14 suspected al-Shabaab operatives, including 6 men linked to the Garissa University massacre where 148 people were killed, have appeared in a Nairobi court. The militant Islamic group admitted last Thursday's attack, saying it was a reprisal for Kenya sending troops into Somalia. Investigators say they have strong leads linking the suspects, including the owner of a hotel where the attackers had stayed. Prosecutors have been given 30 days to complete investigations while the men are being held in police custody. Meanwhile, students and residents held a vigil honoring the victims of the massacre. Many say the death toll would have been lower if security forces had responded quicker to the attack. 7 hours elapsed before police commandos arrived on the scene.
And still ahead in our news tonight. The government seeks protection order for the sister of a girl who fell to her death in Repulse Bay. Reorganization of bus routes in Western Hong Kong Island in the pipeline. And the world's first high-performance aluminium battery.
Jean. Nice shoes.
Hi. Thank you so much. Would you like milk?
No, thank you.
How far would you go for an espresso?
An espresso. What else? Just give me a chance. Sorry, son.
Wars are fought with weapons, but they are won by men. First, in a new breed of super soldiers.
Why me?
Your enemy is not what you expect.
Sunday. Thankful. This is more special. Captain America, the First Avenger. On Pearl's Movie of the Month. And be sure to play TVB Fun to win a collectible figure.
There are more atoms in your eye than there are stars in all the galaxies in the known universe.
Becoming amazingly small.
An atom is